Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some Toronto Raptors disrespect, Riker, because the NBA, from the NBA itself, from no one else, and people are in an uproar, and they've sent us a couple times the NBA power rankings for this season, and they currently have the Toronto Raptors not making the playoffs at this point, after the stellar preseason that we had, going 3-2, but really, the Celtics game we looked pretty solid in, and there's only one dud of a game in the preseason. But people are mad, Riker. We currently are ninth in the Eastern Conference. We're low tier on the power rankings. Do you want to sound off on what they're saying in this article, Riker? As I pull it up on the screen.
Can we see it? So basically, if you're not a bandwagon fan, the top is stacked pretty well as you'd expect. Bucks, Nets, Suns, Jazz, all the teams that excelled last year at the tail end of the playoffs. That makes sense. Then it's trailed by, the typical culprits, the Warriors and the Lakers and the Clippers and likewise. Where it gets interesting is the NBA's ranking of Eastern Conference teams, specifically that the Knicks are ahead of the Celtics in the power rankings. The Celtics slipped somehow to 16th, criminally low when they still have retained Tatum and Brown. And that the Raptors are only 2 spots behind, 18th, better than, or higher placement than, the Pacers, the Hornets, the Wizards, the Cavaliers, all teams we expected to be very competitive with this season.
And the Hornets.
What?
And
I said the Hornets.
I'm trying to navigate this screen as you sound off on all these things, Riker.
But the point is, that's pretty fair. That's pretty fair for what the NBA typically gives credit to the Raptors, even in a good season. So it's understandable that they'd rank them low if they're ranking the Celtics low and we lost to the Celtics. But again, where what they're implying, what they're suggesting is that the Raptors would be 9th at the end of the season, missing the playoffs. That's what has people in turmoil. Where do you stand on this, Ben? Do you think it's fair, reasonable, or do you think it's outrageous and outlandish and that they're not putting enough respect on the Raptors' name?
Well, I don't think it's disrespectful, as we've heard from Raptors fans. However, I do think it's wrong. I think the Raptors will be better than expected, but you can't really expect a lot from especially national media coverage when you played the Kazoos all last season and made your way down to the bottom of the conference, right? So the fact that we're actually put above, I'd say this is honestly kind of ideal range for the Raptors considering how bad we were last season, right? Putting us above the Charlotte Hornets, who do have LaMelo Ball back and ready to go 1 year further. Book Knight looked really good in preseason. Terry Rozier is a 20-point per game guy, and now obviously Gordon Hayward, and hopefully he can stay healthy for that team or whatnot. Yeah, they're going to be in the running for a spot. The Pacers, right? They just re-signed Malcolm Brogdon here today, but Pacers, hopefully Karis LeVert comes back healthy himself, right? Sabonis, Turner, Duarte, they look pretty solid. O'Shea Brissett, who we let go, right? The Pacers are another team that's knocking on the door and bringing in Rick Carlisle. I know all Raptors fans are fans of, oh my god, he's slipping my name. Nate Bjorkgren, right? We love him as an assistant coach, but I think by all accounts, he was not a good coach for the Indiana Pacers last season. And then, the Cavs might sneak their way into teams. If they put the Cavs above us, then I would say that's disrespect. But, the fact that they didn't, the fact that they had all these teams below us at this point, I think it's fair at this point in the season. Now, if we continue to play well and we get a few W's to start off the year and we're continuously this low on the power rankings, then I'll sound off the disrespect alarm.
Yeah, well, but it's not surprising, though. That's my point is the Bucks, the Nets, the Hawks, because of their playoff run, the 76ers, the Heat, the Knicks, the Celtics. I must be missing one.
Nets,
Bucks. Who I'd be missing?
Nets, Bucks,
Bulls, 76ers, Bulls. Hawks, Bulls. That's the one that you could certainly argue is ranked too high because they brought in a bunch of guys who don't play defense, right? Lonzo Ball does defense. Lonzo Ball
Alex Caruso
but
does.
I'm still looking at last season's Vucevic pickup, and I'm looking at the DeMar DeRozan signing. So now you have a bunch of scorers that obviously all can't score at the same time. Only one player is going to put the ball in the basket. They looked really fun, dynamic, fast, and fluid in the preseason, but I would still question their ability to win games on the defensive end. Now, typically, the defensive end doesn't matter so much in the regular season. It's more of a contest of who can put the ball in the basket, which, credit to them, they probably can do that. But
I want to make a little point, just not to cut you off there, but the Bulls were actually 11th in defense last season. They were 11th in the league in defensive rating, so they could be sneaky good. They could be sneaky.
And now you're swapping out two of your starters with two guys who are historically known to not be good at defense. So we'll see how it plays out. Vucevic.
He was there last season. He was on the squad last season, Riker.
Not for the full season.
That's fair. He was there for half.
Listen, point being, I do not think the Chicago Bulls are better than the Raptors, but I may contradict myself because it's a to win regular season games, it's typically about bench depth and scoring. It's less on the defensive side. And because you need to win the games against the worst teams, right? The lesser teams. And the Bulls, they may or they may not be able to do that. Every other team that's in the playoffs outside of the Knicks is probably better than the Toronto Raptors right now. So they have to earn that spot to get into the playoffs. It's not going to be 4th, 5th seed like, both of us were expecting at the beginning. It is probably going to be 7th, 8th, and they're going to have to fight very hard to get there. Now, we think that because of the Raptors' depth, they should be able to make the playoffs, which is why I'm having an issue with, putting them 9th. But I was expecting them to be put 14th, 13th, 14th. Yeah. So this is a nice turnaround of expectations.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And yeah, just to build off that, right? Like, I think the Raptors will be good, will be better, but it makes sense where they're placed in power rankings right now, just from an outsider's perspective. They have to prove it, right? We can cash all these checks for the Raptors in the offseason. I can go out and say top 4 seed, right? You can jump on my bandwagon after a stellar preseason, right? The hot optimism and all that, but the Raptors have to cash the checks in order to make their way up the power rankings, so makes complete sense. It's not disrespect for all the people saying it is. So, but, you could be right, even if we disagree with them. But, I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. You guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Riker, we got to plug Twitter. doing it like Lee Ellis from the starters. But we got more stuff to plug now these days as well, Riker, with the Discord. The Discord has been launched. There's lots of chatter, lots of Raptor chatter on there. And I see you grabbing it. I see you pulling it up. The merch, the OG's merch, it's launched. It's the thing there. We're redesigning the Raptors Digest logo to make it a little bit bigger, make it a little bit cool. But the people that were OGs and got the Raptors Digest hoodie, for one, that's a collector's item now at this point. The Discord's cool there, and you can also become a channel member. We just had our fantasy draft, Riker. I traded, speaking of the Chicago Bulls, actually, no. Well, speaking of Chicago, Nikola Vucevic was drafted 4th in our league. I remember we were going too fast. I think it was Nova who picked him up. But do you want to say anything about your guy Vucevic going number 4 overall in the draft?
He's a great fantasy player because he's giving you those empty stats like Andre Drummond gave to the Detroit Pistons before he got switched teams. So he's a good fantasy pickup, probably not a 4th overall guy, but I don't hate it. But to put him on a winning team or a team with now apparently high expectations, I think they're going to be sadly mistaken, Bulls fans.
That's fair. But you'll always have the 4th overall pick in the Raptors Digest Fantasy League on his resume. But if you guys want to become a channel member and join similar events coming up over the course of the next few months, hit that join button in the I guess it's still called the like section, that general area on the screen. Right, we're longer at plugging things at the end, making these jokes. You have any last words on the Raptors being put 18th
9th.
in the
18th
9th
overall,
in the East, 18th overall in the league?
9th in the East. Hey, we'll see where the chips fall. I suspect it'll be higher than 9th in the East then, and so do you. Cheers.